Hey there, Justice Warrior. I've heard a lot of people complain that they can't criticize Israel without being accused of being an anti-Semite. In fact, it's very easy to criticize Israel without being called an anti-Semite. I do it all the time. So here's a helpful guide. So if you advocate for an intifada, which means a violent uprising against the Jews in their homeland, okay, you're an anti-Semite. But if you say Israel is occupying Gaza without knowing that Israel forcefully removed all 9,000 of its residents from Gaza in 2005, and since then, the only Jews living in Gaza have been 229 hostages that Hamas kidnapped, you're an anti-Semite. But if you chant from the river to the sea, meaning the elimination of the sovereign state of Israel and home to its 9 million residents, you're an anti-Semite. If you think indiscriminate violence against civilians by a bloodthirsty mob is a form of resistance, you're an anti-Semite. If you say there's ethnic cleansing without understanding that Israel does everything to minimize civilian casualties, including pleading with local population to evacuate before an attack, you're an anti-Semite. If you say there's genocide without saying that if Hamas laid down its weapons today, there would be peace, but if Israel does the same, it will be eliminated, you're an anti-Semite. Fuck this shit. If you say free Palestine without acknowledging that Palestinians' refusal to in fact free Palestine themselves by signing all the offers Israel offered it over the years, asking for only peace in return, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Israel is a white supremacist country despite more than half of Israeli Jews being from Arab and North African countries, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Israel is a settler, colonialist state, despite Jews being indigenous to the land and Israel being a sovereign country for 75 years, you're an anti-Semite. If you call Israel an apartheid country without acknowledging that Arab Israelis have equal rights and freedom of religion in Israel and are freer there than in any other Middle East country, you're an anti-Semite. If you refuse to acknowledge the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and instead call it the situation or the tensions in the Middle East, you're an anti-Semite. If you say you oppose Israel because you stand with Muslims but never made a peep about hundreds of thousands of Muslims killed in Yemen, Syria, Sudan, Iran, etc., you're an anti-Semite. If you say you stand with Palestinians but don't demand rights for Palestinians in Syria and Lebanon, where they have none, you're an anti-Semite. If you refuse to believe the IDF but think Hamas is a legitimate source of information, you're an anti-Semite. If you believe everything Hamas says, except their charter where they say they want to kill all Jews, you're an anti-Semite. If you say murdering 1,400 men, women, and children and kidnapping 229 is a response to Netanyahu being right-winged, you're an anti-Semite. If your response to a massacre is to call for a ceasefire instead of the immediate release of the hostages and dismantlement of the perpetrators, you may not be an anti-Semite, but you're really dumb. If you say Israel attacks indiscriminately and not in precise airstrikes against Hamas targets that happen to be purposefully placed in schools, hospitals, and mosques, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Israel attacks just to punish Palestinians and not say in order to prevent more harm to Israelis from stockpiled weapons and terrorists, you're an anti-Semite. If the only Israeli perspective you are willing to listen to are a few fringe Israeli academics or artists who hate their country, you're an anti-Semite. If you say you stand firmly against anti-Semitism when the perpetrator is someone from across the political divide, but mix words over Palestinians massacring Jews in Israel, you're an anti-Semite. If you say you oppose victim blaming but feel the need to put horrors of October 7th in context whenever they are mentioned, you're an anti-Semite. If you ever said, believe all women, but demand to see autopsies before believing women were raped in front of their friends' eyes, you're an anti-Semite. If you ever proudly declared that hate has no home here, but don't speak up against harassment of your Jewish friends. You're an anti-Semite if you say you support indigenous people, yet don't care that Jews have had a steady presence in the land of Israel for thousands of years. You're an anti-Semite if you say you're an LGBTQ plus ally. Oh, I can't even do this one. Too stupid. If you're more concerned with exactly how many babies were beheaded instead of why the babies lost their heads, you're an anti-Semite. If you say people are brainwashed by watching Fox News, but the Palestinians who are fed a steady diet of jihad glorification and Jew hatred in their textbooks and children's shows are free-thinking freedom fighters, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Gaza was stolen from a country called Palestine and not, won in battle against Egypt, who controlled Gaza until 1967 when they tried to destroy Israel, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Arab terrorism against Jews is solely a response to settlement, meaning it only began in 1967 when Israel won a war against Jordan, West Bank, and Egypt, Gaza, after they tried to destroy Israel, you're an anti-Semite. If you say there was a sovereign country called Palestine with a president and a flag before 1948 instead of the British mandate of Palestine, you're an anti-Semite and also ignorant. If you say poor living conditions and lack of food in Gaza are the fault of Israel and don't mention Hamas spends billions of foreign aid dollars on weapons, you're an anti-Semite. If you say Israel cuts off electricity to Gaza without acknowledging that Israel itself provides the electricity in the first place when it's not their job, and that Hamas repurposes virtually all the electricity and fuel to terrorism, you're an anti-Semite. If you blame Israel for Gaza running out of water, but not Hamas, who ruins the water infrastructure and takes the water pipes and repurposes them as rocket launchers, you're an anti-Semite. If you compare the bloodlust of Hamas, an elected government that controls Gaza, to a few fringe extremists who exist in Israel like they do in every society, you're an anti-Semite. If you are afraid to call out Hamas terrorism because you think it's offensive to Muslims, you're an anti-Semite and an Islamophobic and also a racist. If you don't call out Egypt, which shares a border with Gaza through which they could send relief and take all the refugees but refuse to, you're an anti-Semite. If you call to end the blockade without acknowledging that the blockade is only on second-use materials and is a response to the smuggling of weapons aimed at Israel into Gaza, you're an anti-Semite. If you compare death tolls like their basketball scores without acknowledging that Hamas is the source and that they use their own people as human shields, preventing them from leaving dangerous areas despite the IDF warning them, you're an anti-Semite. If you say you worry about Palestinian refugees, but not about tens of thousands of Israeli refugees from the north and the south who have had to evacuate their homes because of Hamas and Hezbollah, you're an anti-Semite. If you say you're not an anti-Semite, but merely an anti-Zionist, meaning you oppose the mere existence of a safe haven for the Jews in their ancestral homeland alongside their neighbors, well, you get the idea. If that doesn't help, know also that you are also hurting the Palestinian chances for a free and independent state. You are actively pushing for war and fighting from the comfort of your home instead of peace and coexistence. Now, how does that feel? Like, share, subscribe.